the British government has given the go-ahead for China to take part in the construction of the UK's new generation of nuclear power stations. It'll be the first one built in the UK in something like 20 years. The project is going to be led by the French. Yeah, this is the French company, EDF. This whole deal had been in doubt with the new, well, after the new Prime Minister, if you will, Theresa May. She wanted to review the deal, but the deal for the plant, which would generate 7% of the UK's electricity, has now been confirmed. The Chinese are investing some $8 billion into this. The majority, though, is going to be invested by the French. But look, let's find out more. Chris Roebuck is visiting Professor of Transformational Leadership at the Cass Business School and a familiar face. Chris, good to see you, mate. Thanks for coming on in. I think China got what they wanted in this, no?
Yeah, I think China got what they wanted, but this is a classic situation of international, the same as corporate environments, where you have a number of different leaders who have different constituencies they have to keep happy, who have different short-term objectives, different long-term objectives, and what's had to happen here is that everybody has to come out of this looking good. Okay, Theresa May, she didn't make the decision, so she's in a position where she has to sell the decision and look good. Hence, perhaps, the slight delay in double-checking, crossing the I's and T's. She's going to be subject to scrutiny. The Chinese government aren't going to be subject to as much scrutiny from their public, but they still have to look good, because this is obviously a big deal in terms of the credibility of their industry.
And that, you've led me in nicely to segue into this now. OK, so good for their, it's got to be credible. Yeah. The Chinese are going to be using their own technology, right? Their their own reactors and that. Here's the thing, we know that, and you very well know, the powers to be in Beijing aren't dummies, right? They are not fools when it comes to their investments around the world. If they can get a foothold into Britain's future energy needs with their own reactors, their own Chinese nuclear technology, if they can do it in the UK, hello, rest of the world, we can do it elsewhere.
And that's the point, because people forget that governments, just like commercial organisations, have brands. Aston Martin is a brand, Primark is a brand. The Chinese government and their power programme is a brand. If they don't position it, sell it, and say to people, this is a great brand, it works well, we're going to support you, and present something that is positive, they're not going to sell.
Yeah. Am I right by saying that, look, Theresa May, because you said that she didn't make the decision, for those watching around the world, former Prime Minister David Cameron made this deal. Then, obviously, he quit. She came in. So just to put everybody in the picture there. But we've also got Brexit on the table, right? The UK, again, everybody, I'm sure you know about it, the UK vote to leave the European Union. And so I'm wondering, Theresa May and her team, they would have had to tread carefully dealing with the Chinese, because once the UK is out of Europe, surely to goodness, the UK is going to rely very heavily on China with some pretty massive trading, right? So you don't want to pee the Chinese off too much with this, because you're going to want to do big deals with them in a couple of years' time.
As we've seen over the years in terms of big deals and how British governments, and indeed governments across the world, position themselves, it's about the long term. If you look at some of the issues around deals with Saudi Arabia, particularly in relation to arms, there are good things about doing the deal, and there are bad things that some people think, would suggest you shouldn't do the deal. The question is, in terms of China, you don't want to upset the Chinese, because as far as the Chinese are concerned, the way they operate is very much that if you do business with us here, but you don't do business with us there, we'll take all our cards off the table. Whereas, obviously, the way that the British government works with British business, they don't have as much control in terms of pulling the rug if you don't comply to the requirements of what they want to achieve their objectives. In the end, it's about leaders around the world, in France, in UK, in China, juggling what they want short-term and long-term. But we mustn't forget that this decision is a 30 to 50-year consequence decision that we're making. So that's why I think Theresa May is saying we need to get this absolutely right.
Yeah, and look, just very, very briefly, the UK market is an important market to China. I mean, we've seen what the Chinese invest in, something like 5 of the English Premier Football League clubs. The Chinese Sovereign Wealth Fund, somebody was just telling me, I didn't know this, was going to, or may go invest in Liverpool, I think it is, as in the football club. Now this, other investments, the Chinese like the UK.
The Chinese like the UK, and to some degree, you and I have spent a lot of time in Beijing and around China, and there is, interestingly, quite a cultural alignment between the way the Brits work and the way the Chinese work in terms of speaking to each other, personal relationships, and operating in that way. Therefore, the Chinese do tend to like investing in this country. And I think the other thing that is interesting is that sort of historically, that has actually been going on a long time. So the bonds are quite strong, but the Chinese government is now perhaps expecting more in return, because as China becomes more powerful, it has more cards.
Yep.
And above all, the Chinese are great gamblers.
They are indeed. Chris, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you very much for joining us. Chris Roebuck joining us there.